we're doing today is pretty much done on the transmission on the Suburban, but while it's out, I want to address this oil leak this thing's been having, and it'll be a lot easier with the transmission out. So we're going to replace the rear main seal and then the gasket for the rear main, because that plate bolts on, and then also the oil pan gasket. So we're going to do all that with the engine still in and with the transmission removed. And we're also going to replace the oil pump O-ring, the ones that are notorious for failing on these. This one was not causing any issues, but if we're going to have the oil pan off to do the oil pan gasket, we might as well do that O-ring before we have any issues. So the first thing we're going to need to do is unbolt the flex plate. And while the flex plate's off, I'm going to check it real good to make sure there's no cracks in it. It should be pretty easy to spot. Just look it over real good. You definitely don't want to have to pull the transmission again, if this thing was cracked. So we're going to pull it off. We'll check it, make sure it's not cracked. We're going to put some lube, spray some lube around here. We're at the end of the crankshaft. This is a pretty tight fit at the flex plate, and so that'll just help it come apart easily. So take these bolts out, lube this up, and pull the flex plate off. We're also going to need to drain the oil, and then we're going to need to remove this cross member right here. Now this, of course, is a two-wheel drive, so it makes this job pretty easy. If you've got a four-wheel drive, it's going to be a lot harder. So we've just got, when I jacked this thing up, I knew I was going to be doing all this. So I put my jack stands over here so I can make sure I'd be able to get this cross member out. So 4 bolts to get this cross member out. And then, of course, we're going to drain the oil and the flex plate bolts. So I think that's a good place to start. So I'm going to go take care of those things, and we'll pick back up afterwards. The next step would be, undoing some of these electrical connections and start taking the oil pan bolts off. So the pan, we'll take the pan off first. After we get the pan off, then we'll do the rear main cover. Alright, so I've sprayed the end down right here, and this is just a rubber mallet. It's a soft rubber mallet. All I'm going to do is just kind of work it back and forth just to loosen it up. It's getting a little easier. After I do this just a little bit, I'll grab it and I should be able to just pull it off. You can just see it just got really loose there. And it's off. So we'll inspect that real good, make sure all the teeth are in good shape, and make sure there's no cracks in it. So now we can get to, now we're going to take these off. And I did drain the oil already. So we're going to take these off, 4 bolts, get this cross member out of the way. And then we can start undoing the oil pump bolts. So we've got this cross member off. This rear main looks, I don't think it was leaking. I think all of our oil leak was probably the oil pan gasket right in here somewhere. But we've got the transmission out, we might as well do it. And I've already bought the gasket anyway, so it just makes sense. So I think our next step is I'm going to take this plastic piece off, and then I'm going to come up to the front here, and we're going to get some of these wires out of the way. Anything that you know, this one here, we'll unplug this wire and then see if any of these connect to the oil pan. They might bolt through the bolts, I'm not sure, but they'll need to be out of the way. So it feels like they bolt through with the pan bolt. It looks like once we unbolt those will be out of the way. So I think I'm gonna take a wire brush and just kind of brush all around the side of the pan and then spray it down with brake cleaner. You can see this thing was leaking pretty bad. You can look at that oil filter, look how much oil had come down it. You know, it's pretty nasty under here. So yeah, and we're definitely gonna have to align the oil pan so that it's flush with the side of the block. Right here. So let's go ahead and bolt this thing up, or unbolt, clean it up, and then we'll unbolt the pan. And we can leave the oil filter on it for right now. It doesn't really matter. Alright, so what I didn't think about was that the check valve on this oil filter is holding oil up above it, keeping it from draining down. And so I should have went ahead and undid the oil filter, and since I didn't, as soon as the oil pan dropped a little bit, it released and dumped oil. So go ahead and take the filter off before you unbolt the pan. So I've just got 2 bolts left on the pan, so I'm going to wipe this up so it's not dripping and go ahead and undo those last 2 bolts. They're loose, the 2 bolts are loose. That left the 2 middle ones. Did all the ones except the middle one on each side, and right now they're loosened up, which allowed, you know, the pan to drop, and that's when it broke that seal. Of course, when it did that, I had to get out of the way real quick. It got my shoulder and through one of these absorbent mats and caught it. So we're gonna clean this up and go ahead and get the pan the rest of the way off. Down. So what you've got, and the reason they leak over here, is you've got pressurized oil, you know, coming in the filter and out the filter. I don't know which side's which. I'm just going to assume in and out because the pickup's over on this side. And so that's pressurized oil. So this gasket, it's a really good gasket, but you know, it's got this that goes here, and then it's got an outer seal around it. And these are rubberized, you know, rubber right here, and this is just plastic. And so eventually, you know, this rubber just starts, will stop sealing good enough, and it seeps around here, and then seeps out the side of the oil pan gasket, the outer part of it, right there. So that's why they leak right there. And I think that's what mine was doing. Like I said, I think my rear main seal was fine, but we're this far into it, we might as well replace it. You know, while we're in here. So the other thing is we're going to do the pickup screen, oil pump, not the pickup screen, the oil pump pickup O-ring. So I need to go over there and look at the front. I haven't looked up anything on doing this, and I probably should have, but we're just kind of, I know it's up there at the front, and we're gonna go look at it and see. Um, hopefully all we need to do is just unbolt this pickup screen and it pulls out. I'm hoping we don't have to take this whole windage tray off, but engine looks pretty good in here. You know, it's got some staining, or I guess you could call it, darkness to it, but I don't see any sludge or anything. Same for the inside of the pan. You know, it just looks dark. I don't see sludge or anything. We'll clean it up with some brake cleaner, and you know, we won't make it look like brand new as long as we get any old oil and grit and all that kind of stuff out of it. Same thing here. We'll just spray everything down. Like I said, I went by with a brush and knocked off the heavy stuff, and then took my air blower and blew along here just to try to keep any dirt away from this edge. Try to get as much knocked away before we pull the pan off. So right now, I think I'm gonna go ahead and, let's see, do we want to go ahead and do the rear main seal? I think so. I think we'll do the rear main seal and then do the I'm gonna go ahead and take the pickup tube off, and that'll get it out of the way. I think that's a good plan. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt these. We'll get the pickup tube out to do the O-ring, and while it's out, we'll go ahead and undo the rear main cover. We undo these bolts around here. That takes this whole cover off, and then the seal is right here. So I've got this whole gasket and the seal, so we're going to do all of it. Alright, so looks like what we've got here is two bolts that hold the tube on, two studs, and then right there in the front you can see it looks like a 10mm right there that holds it on to the, I'm gonna guess that's the oil pump right there. So we're gonna go ahead and undo that bolt, and then that and that, and we should be able to get this pickup tube out. Alright, it's out, pickup tube's out. Went ahead and it was, you know, these two bolts, two nuts, and then the bolt right there, and pickup tube comes out. It looks like it left the O-ring up in the oil pump, so we'll have to go back up in there and pull it out. I went to my Chevy dealership and picked up an O-ring. Like, most I've ever paid for one little O-ring was like $8 for one O-ring. And like I said, I've already got a pan gasket, rear main seal cover, and rear main seal gasket, or rear main seal and rear main seal cover gasket. I've got the oil pan gasket. I replaced this gasket a while back, hoping that it was leaking there, you know, because it was pooling down there. I think right now I feel like it was coming here and then going over there. But so that's a new gasket in there. I don't know if my kit came with that gasket, but if it doesn't, you might want to just go ahead and replace that gasket while you've got the oil pan off. We're going to clean this thing up with some brake cleaner. You know, like I said, it's got a little bit of gunk, but it's really not that bad for 200,000 miles. No sludge or anything like that. The bottom of the pan looks good. There's, what you see down in there is this oil pan gasket laying down in there. So we'll get this thing all cleaned up. Probably go ahead and unbolt this little tray here so we can get down in there and get this thing cleaned up. I don't know if they rivet that or what. Looks like it's riveted. don't know what that is. Yeah, it looks like rivets. I guess we're going to have to drill the rivets out. I don't know. Oh, I'm going to look that up. It looks like they rivet them in from the factory. That's odd. Alright, let me go back under it and we'll get the rear main seal done. So now we're doing the rear main seal. I've already started loosening these bolts off. We'll take all them out and then we can pull this cover off. I don't know if you can actually replace the seal itself without taking the cover off. You may be able to, but I already have the kit. Came with both. It was a rear main seal kit, and so it definitely would be easier with it off, and so that's what we're gonna do. And it came with a plastic insert inside the seal, and I don't know if that's just to keep the seal from, you know, keep it stretched out, you know, while it's in storage, or if that's an installation tool to help it slip over the end of the crankshaft. So we're gonna have to look that up and see. And I bought Felpro. I might should have bought GM gaskets, but I just went ahead and got Felpro. That was what was easier to find. That's Felpro for the oil pan and the rear main. It's crazy because, you know, sometimes Felpro, I like Felpro, and sometimes their gaskets are better than OEM, and sometimes they're not as good. The intake gaskets that they make, the premium ones, are better than the GM ones. They're really, really good gaskets. I put them on my Z71, and they were very nice gaskets. I have not had to do them on this one. I'm gonna guess that it'll probably need them at some point fairly soon. Probably the next 30,000 miles, I bet it'll throw a code for the intake gaskets. Almost got them all out. We'll just get a screwdriver in here. Actually, I think we've got that one still in it, so while that's still in it, I'll take my rubber mallet. That'll kind of help break that thing loose. I'm probably gonna need both hands to get this thing out of here. So let me pull it out, and it is off. We'll take a SOS pad or a Scotch-Brite and clean the crank up just a little bit. You know, just like one of those kitchen little scrubbing pads. Not a SOS, one of those green Scotch-Brites. And take some brake cleaner and just rub along here and clean up any of that on the crank, just to make sure we get a real good seal. So let me, there's the cover, there's the gasket. We have to clean all this stuff up. Got the oil pan over there sitting over on a bucket, getting it cleaned up. Put this right there. Here's our old gasket. This gasket appears to be in good shape, and we will compare it to our new one. Here's the old one, and here's our new one. Looks to be well made. I don't see any issues with the Velcro on here. We'll put some silicone right there at the bottom corner where it meets the oil pan. That's the only place I'm going to put silicone. Corner. Put that back in there. And let me clean up everything. I'm going to knock, I got this cleaned up pretty good. I'm going to knock this seal out. And then I don't have a seal driver large enough. This is the plate for my seal driver kit, and this is of course the large as it gets. And so I'll probably just put a block of wood or something across it to drive the new one in. So this cover's got these 3 little spots like this. What you do is you take a screwdriver. This is one I use for prying. I don't use this as a screwdriver. I use this for prying and all kinds of stuff. Hammering. It's a little Hong Kong screwdriver, and can't believe the handle's held up so well. But take it, drive it through like that, and then you pry the seal up. I did it in 2 spots. Got it over here, did it, then got it over here and did it again, and that got it up. So I'm going to clean this up in here, and I'm going to put some silicone around that seal, and I think this is an installation tool, so we're going to leave that in there, and we'll use the crank. As we push it on, the crank will push this plastic deal out. I think that's to help keep you from tearing the seal as you install it onto the crankshaft. So the seal is marked. Where is it? This side out. So it's going to go in there just like this. So let me clean this up and just put a thin coat of silicone around there, and we'll drive this in with a wood block. Alright, it's in. I'm not crazy about it. I used some right stuff put along the inside of the thing. And of course, you know, that'll make it slide easier. But I was able to just push it in, and then I punched it all around, and it really didn't go much further. So definitely was not a super tight fit. So I went ahead and put some right stuff around the outside just to help hold it in. It's the right seal for this. It's a lot thinner than the original one. And it fit looser than the original one. But it is the same diameter, crankshaft diameter. And like I said, it's what it calls for, so it should be the right one. It's just odd. But we're gonna let that set up. I don't think it'll ever come out. Once that right stuff sets up, it should hold it in. So kind of disappointing. Probably should have went and got the GM set. But it is what it is. I guess while we're waiting, we can double check if this gasket is correct. It looked correct compared to the original gasket, but I haven't laid it over the cover. One hand, it's kind of difficult to see. Yep, it's all lines up right. So I don't know why it fit different. I guess that's just how that one's made to go. I don't know. Like I said, it's the right one for this one. So if you do this, I think I can't get, well, I might if I went to the Chevy dealership. I can't get one locally, Delco. So I'm kind of stuck with the Felpro. But it's what all the auto parts stores sell, and it's got good reviews. So we'll run it. I'm going to be very disappointed though if it leaks or if it blows out. Like I said, that right stuff should hold it in there.